And so yeah, so I'm going to go over the steps for setting things up. As I just kind of talked about, the way it works now, it doesn't work exactly the way that I had kind of planned earlier before the semester started, but it still works pretty much the same way. We just have to make sure to follow these steps in order. Um, there's really only one part that really matters that much, but it's just easier to kind of do it all at once. So the first step, this part, you don't really have to do it first, but I put it first because it takes the longest. If you go to meta.com/quest/setup, you need to run this app on your computer to connect to the headset. And so you can download it here. I obviously already have it on my computer, so I'm not going to download it. But the download is pretty big, and it takes a little while to install. So while you're doing the other stuff, I would just get this started. As I mentioned, I think this only works on PC, so you can use a PC from the lab if you don't have one. But just click download here, and once it downloads, oh, the download actually isn't that big. It's just the installer is not that crazy. But then once you download it, see, it's saying I've already installed it, but obviously if you haven't installed it, you'll just install it here. And it does take a while, at least in my experience, so you'll need some time for that. So we're going to come back to that later. I just put it up at the top so you could have that going in the background while you work on the other stuff. Here's the part that's going to be the most important to get it right order. Basically, we have this Godot template scene like we've used for the other projects, but we have to use a couple of plugins for the VR stuff to work. And if you don't download the plugins first and before you open the Godot project, essentially when you open the Godot project, if they're not there, it's going to try to find them. And then if it doesn't find them, it makes an error that you should be able to fix. But for some reason, I haven't been able to figure out how to fix that yet. So to avoid that, what we're going to do is start by downloading the plugins and put those into the project before we open the project. So both of these links here are just going to go directly to the downloads. So it'll just download the zip files directly on your computer. So you can download the first one, that's a little bit smaller, and then download the second one. That one's a little bit bigger, so that's going to take a second to download. So we'll come back to that in a second, but you can go to your downloads folder, and you can just see those are downloading. And the first one, the Godot XR tools are some built-in like controllers that we're going to use so that we don't have to create them from scratch. And then the second one, the OpenXR, that's just that's just a library that helps connect Godot to the Oculus and other virtual reality platforms. Okay, so while that's downloading, we're going to go over and fork the VR scene template. I'm actually going to create a dummy GitHub account and go over this. We used GitHub before to download the projects, but then we didn't really have to manage them much beyond that. But for this project, ultimately, we're going to have to do some more work to consolidate the projects together. And I'm going to go over that in a later class because it's going to require its own sort of tutorial. But it's not too bad. We're just going to basically use GitHub to merge all of our projects together. And so we want to make sure that to have GitHub set up correctly to do that. So the way to do that is to go to the VR scene template. And this is on my GitHub page, but you can see right now I'm actually logged into a test account that I created. So I can demonstrate this. So you're just going to click the fork button here. And you're going to create a fork here. So once you create a fork, this is your own copy of the project, which you can edit, and it won't affect the original project. But the nice thing about a fork is it still maintains its relationship with the original project. And you can do this thing called a pull request, which is essentially you make your own content or you make edits, and then you basically make a request to me to merge your new content back into the original project. And so that way we can all build the same project. And so ultimately, because there's so many different sort of like basically gating issues with the Oculus development, if we want to test stuff, it's not that bad. But to actually build an application and put it on the device, you have to have a lot of stuff set up correctly. And so to make that a little bit easier, we're just going to have one big project, and I'm just going to publish applications to the device that'll have everybody's scenes in them. And we'll see how that goes. I'll explain how to do it on your own. So if people really want to make their own app, they can. But we'll look at that in a later class. Okay, so once you fork this, you can click on the code button here and click open with GitHub Desktop. If you just want to look at it and play around with it, you can download the zip, but the zip file is not connected to your GitHub account. And so any changes that you make will not be able to be pushed back to GitHub. So if I click open with GitHub, it looks like says it wants me to update. So I'm going to download this real quick. Hopefully, okay. While that's downloading, I'm going to open up my own GitHub. And right now I'm not logged in. So I'm going to go to options and I'm going to sign in. I'm going to sign into my test account. So I'm already logged in here. So it's just going to use the browser to log me in. And so I'm going to go back to GitHub Desktop. And so now I'm logged in. And I'm going to go to File and go to Clone Repository. So you can only do this after you've forked the repository. If you haven't forked it yet, this one won't work. So I'm going to go to Clone. And then you can see here, I just have one repository. So I'm going to click on MEA test. That's my test account, VR scene template. And then I want to put this somewhere on my desktop. I'm getting this conflict because I already have a copy of this on my desktop. So I'm just going to create a new folder. I'll just make a new folder here called MEA 300 VR. And I'll put it in there. So you can put this in whatever folder you want. Since I already had a copy of this for my other account, I just had to make a new project. So I'm going to click clone there. And so that's going to clone the scene. And eventually, what you're going to do is make changes and then contribute them back to the parent fork. So see how it says, how are you planning to use this fork? And it says contribute to the parent project or for my own purposes. You can really select either one here. It doesn't really matter because we can change it later, and we'll go over that later. But eventually, we want to push stuff back to my project. So you can leave it as the first option and click continue. And essentially what that does is it basically is still pointing my copy of the project, but you can push changes to your own version as well. So you can always change those things if you go into repository settings, and you can see the remote here right now is my account. And so if you try to publish your changes, what it will actually do is it'll make pull requests to my account. But if you want to put something on your own account, just fill in your own account here, and that'll change that. So you don't really need to worry about that right now, but we can go over that again later. Okay, so now we've got the project on our computer. So we're getting a little bit closer to opening it, which is exciting. So now I'm going to open up the file. So I'm going to find the project folder that I just created. Where did I put it? I don't see it here. Oh, there it is. Okay. Let's move this over here. So there's my VR scene template. So here's the part that we got to do right. So we need to add these little plugins. I'm going to open up my VR scene template. And before, I don't want to open anything because it'll create an error. I want to create a new folder and call this add-ons. So it has to be add-ons and it has to be lowercase a because Godot is going to look for these plugins there. So you just have to make sure to get that folder right. If you make any mistakes with this, it's easy to redo it. So we can always redo it together. Yeah. No. What? You just create the folder. The add-ons folder, it's already there. Okay, let me take a look at that later. Okay, so we're going to open the add-ons folder and we're going to put our 2 plugins in here. So the funny thing about this is that both of these plugins have an add-ons folder inside them to make supposedly to make it easier to put it into your Godot project. But we don't want add-ons inside of add-ons, so we have to be a little bit careful here. But we're just going to extract each one of these. I'm going to turn off show extracted files so it doesn't open another window. I'm going to extract Godot XR tools. Do the same thing with Godot OpenXR. And then these are going to look kind of the same. One of them looks a little bit different, so we'll go over that. So now I have 2 folders here. So let's change this view to list. Okay. So I have Godot OpenXR here. I'm going to open that up. And this one has like a little hash at the end because this is an older version of this build because the newer version isn't compatible with what we're using. So anyway, we open that up. There's add-ons. So we don't want to put add-ons inside of add-ons. We just want to go into add-ons and then grab Godot OpenXR. And that's what we're going to move over there. And then we're going to go back to downloads and go to Godot XR tools, open this up, go into add-ons. There we go. So once we get inside add-ons, we just drag this in there. And so now you have these empty folders. You can just delete these. And if you need to get them again, you can just unzip those again. They're still inside the zip folder. And if you're not sure if you got the right folder here, so you want VR scene template add-ons, then Godot OpenXR, Godot XR tools. If you open these up and you see this, that means it's good. If you see plugin.cfg, plugin.gd, same thing with this one. There's a bunch of stuff in here, but as long as you see those plugin files, you know they're in the right place. So we've got our VR scene template, we've got our add-ons. Now we're ready to open this in Godot. Here's the moment where we'll find out if we got everything right. So I'm going to double-click project.godot. And this actually takes a while because there's a lot of stuff in here. So let's talk about, so it's importing the assets and it's building up the scene. But there's a lot of stuff in here. It may take like a minute. So we can talk about the rest of what we're going to do while this is going. So let's go back to our browser. Okay. So this is what we did. We just added the add-ons. Once it's done, we're going to enable the plugins. They may be enabled already, but we're just going to double check that. And then we're going to open up the scene folder, the scene files. And at that point, we should be able to run them. And we'll take a look at inside of them. You're going to see kind of some of the pre-built stuff. But now, let's see where we are with this. This is still importing. So now we're going to actually connect the Oculus because once we have the Oculus connected to the PC, we can run the Godot scene and we can use the Oculus to control the Godot scene. So this is its own setup process. Mine, I think, will not be as difficult because I've done it before, but when you're setting it up for the first time, there's a lot of things that can kind of go sideways. But I'm going to grab my Oculus. So the cable that the Oculus comes in doesn't really work for the PC link. You have to use a USB-C to USB, whatever this is, the regular USB cable. So I put one in both of those Oculuses. So you're going to connect the USB cable to the computer. You're going to open the Oculus software. So you should have it hopefully installed at this point. You're just going to open it up. You are going to have to log in at this point. And so when you're ready to do that, let me know, and I'll log you into the Makerspace Oculus account. So it'll connect to the device because the device is logged into the Makerspace account, and the device and the app have to be logged into the same account to talk to each other. So we're all just going to use one account. This is my account, but we also have the general makerspace account. So then hopefully your device will be green. If it's green, that means it's connected, so that's good. If it's not green, you need to troubleshoot, and I can help you do that. You might go to device setup and click on link cable and click continue and then connect and da da da, and hopefully that'll work. But we'll have to go through that, and it may take different amounts of debugging. One setting that you have to check on here is if you go to general. So this is in Oculus, go to settings, go to general. Make sure that the OpenXR runtime is set to Oculus. Once it's set, it should be fine. But if this button is blue or active, you can just click on it. And then check unknown sources here so that we can use Godot and it'll let us go through. I think that's it here. I'm going to check the Godot import process. Okay, Godot is done importing, so that's good. So let's look at what's in these scenes for a second, and then we'll see if we can connect to the headset. So in the scenes folder, I made a few default scenes. There's a menu scene, and this is literally just a menu to load other scenes. And so I built that so that we can make links to everybody's scenes. So when we build out the app, we can go in and try the different scenes. So we can add buttons in there. That's just kind of, we'll see how it works, but that's basically the idea there. In level 1, there's really not anything different. There's still just a big menu, but I put some trees in there just so you can see the space a little bit. And both scenes have this first-person controller, which we get from the OpenXR or from the Godot XR tools. So there's a ground element, there's some trees, and then this first-person controller has basically the left and right hand controller. I put a little box on them. It looks goofy. You can delete it if you want to, but just to kind of show where they are. And you can put other stuff on there if you want to, or you can just delete it. And then there's some controls where you can teleport your character around, and then of course you can look around. There's a light in here, just so there's some light, and then there's a little viewport 2D and 3D that is to add that menu in there. And so, you don't have to have that, but somewhere in your scene would be useful to have a button to go back to the menu. But everything else works the same way, so you can design your scene just the way you did with the previous examples. So once I have everything connected, when I click on the scene button, I should be able to control it with the Oculus. Right now, I don't have the Oculus connected, so nothing happens when I open this up. So you can design your scene, but without the Oculus, you can't really preview it. You could throw a first-person controller in here to use if you're not connected to the Oculus from our other 3D game scene, but as is, it won't work until you have the Oculus connected. Okay, so I'm going to see if this works. I'm going to try connecting the Oculus. So I'm going to have to go inside here and hopefully it'll work. Okay. And one thing, you're probably going to have to restart your computer and your Oculus like a million times. Right now I'm setting up my Guardian thing. I'm going to do a stationary boundary because I'm just sitting here. Okay. So now I'm in and I'm going to try to connect. I'm going to go to Quest Link. And I'm going to choose my computer. Okay, so it doesn't look like it sees it right now. Okay, so right now, you guys can't see this, but I'm getting a dialog inside the Oculus. It says allow device to access, and I'm going to say allow. And now I'm going to choose my computer. And it's loading now. I have a feeling it's not going to work because it only works like half the time. maybe less. While that is going, I'm going to see if there's any settings that I missed. Okay. Okay. So yeah, it's stuck on loading. This is pretty common. I'm probably going to have to restart it. But let's try it one more time before we do that. Um, uh, they also just released a new Oculus OS, so the whole UI is a little bit different than it was like a month ago. So uh, oh, it says I'm missing requirements. That's actually kind of new, so maybe that'll be helpful. Panel width Ethernet. Oh, okay. So sort of good because it seems like they've added some new error messaging, which they used to have basically none. But does they need an Ethernet connection, which seems insane. I'm gonna try it again anyway. Okay, it's not working. So that's kind of discouraging. It seems like there's some new settings that I'm gonna have to spend some time with. So you didn't even make it to the end of this part. So I'll have to spend some more time on this and figure out what the new setup is going to be. But anyway, at the very least, we have gone over how to get this thing to open without crashing. So you guys can work on that today, and then hopefully, if I get this to work again, I will can come back and figure out that part. So I'm going to stop this here.